I'm going to call the meeting to order. The Board of Selectmen are here, as well as several guests. And I will open the floor for hear from the public. You folks?
So
If you just identify yourself for the record.
my name is Matthew Grouse, pastor of Westford Congregational Church, and just here to look for some clarification on why the letters that I wrote for advertisement have been rejected for printing in the Citizen. It's been a little over a month and still haven't heard clearly back from the town on what content they felt was not appropriate for printing in the Citizen, and just looking for clarification and some answers.
Well, if I can just comment on that briefly, basically, when we hear from the public, we just hear from the public and comments are taken into consideration, everything. But as you're aware, your council wrote us a letter
Right.
that we have referred to council.
Yep.
The last I've heard of that, our council is talking or is going to be talking to your council to try to clarify things.
Okay.
I have not heard back on that yet.
Okay. All right. I would like to have the letters submitted so that they're part of the public record and they go in the minutes for this meeting.
You can do that?
I have 3 of the 4, well, I have 2 of the 3 that have been submitted, printed. The middle one, could you possibly attach that to the minutes that you have that in your email?
Sure.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Here's the other 2.
Okay.
Awesome.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I think I'm.
No, I think just the most concerning thing is that we haven't had anything back in writing, only what the guidelines were, but the guidelines clearly were not clear. By the way, I'm Task Grouse.
The guidelines were clear, but both of the submissions that were rejected for publication fit within the guidelines as published in the Citizen. So the reason why they've not been allowed to be published is the question that's unclear, because they do fit within the guidelines. So
In your opinion, there was some concern there from our editor that was expressed to us, and that's how attorneys got involved in this.
right.
Yeah, and I think it's a seeking to understand, coming to an agreement and a clear guideline, which would be helpful. And as time goes on, it just means that more publications that have been denied. So I think 30 days, we're going on 60 days and we haven't had a reply. I think that's concerning.
Okay, anything further? No,
No, we're good.
Peter?
I have a presentation for letters to the selectmen. I don't know how many are present right here today.
3 of us, the board.
Okay. One is on.
Catherine is
Catherine's
on Zoom.
Okay, so that can be for Catherine. This can be for
Could you please share your name again, please?
Peter Ralston.
Okay. And what is the presentation about?
This presentation is about the zoning commission. And this is my formal opposition to the zoning modifications that are being discussed right now. This is in regards to my notice of opposition to the following zoning modification request, PZ-23-1 text amendment application article 300-14 definitions, and article 317B interstate interchange development zone. And the applicant is Campanelli Rodalkis, LM Acquisition, and LL and Ashford Realty Trust. And my reasons for opposing this request is, number one, when they filed this application, they omitted text amendment applications for the following: Article 319, Section A, subsection 1, items B, C, and D, subsection 2, items A, B, and C, and D, and E, and also they omitted Section E, subsections 1 and 3. My second reason is that the zoning application on file for public viewing is not signed or noted of a fee collection by the zoning official on page 3, and the permit processing form, page 4, is entirely blank. And my third reason for objection of this is there's no print notification in either public hearing 213 or 313 was published in violation of Connecticut General Statutes 214, section 87D, hearings and decisions. My fourth reason is that no provisions for Connecticut Public Act 21-2, Senate Bill 1202, section 149, subsection B, were followed by the Ashford Zoning Commission in making online meetings available to the public. So those are my 4 reasons, and based on those 4 reasons, I request that the application PZ-23-1 should be withdrawn, as both the applicant and the zoning board did not follow the state statute requirements. And in addition to this letter being my notice of opposition, it is also my written request for item 4 to be provided for me and my fellow residents of Ashford.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, I understand that you also directed this. Did you give it in hard copy to the planning and zoning?
I was going to do that at the next meeting.
Okay, on next Monday?
Correct.
Okay, we will make this letter a part of the record and of course, let it be available for them.
Okay.
As you're aware, at this point, it's in the hands of the planning and zoning, not the board of selectmen. So we can certainly take this under advisement. We have been receiving a number of opinion letters on this very matter.
Well, I appreciate you letting me have the time to do this, and I think that this, while yes, this is a zoning issue, I think it's also an issue for your department, and I want this to be part of the public record for this meeting as
And
well.
it will be.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You may want to be aware that the Board of Selectmen has no authority in this at all, that only P and Z does. And whatever their decision is in this matter, the only ones that can overrule it is the state Supreme Court. So I just want to make sure that that's clear so people understand that unfortunately the Board of Selectmen don't have any authority in this.
Irregardless, I would like this to be part of this meeting and part of the public.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for your input.
I appreciate your input and your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And you're welcome to stay.
I don't want to get involved in it. You guys have lots of business to do. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Okay. First selectmen's briefing. I'll try to be brief. I spent the morning in court in Danielson, and the case that we've taken against Mr. Thomas Kimball has been resolved to this point. He pleaded guilty and applied for and has been granted accelerated rehabilitation with a probation period of 2 years. There is to be no contact with any town staff or employees unless filtered through this office and for official business. If there is contact with it, then the AR will be withdrawn and there'll be a rearrest warrant issued. So at this point, it's been resolved. I was in court on behalf of the town, and Mr. Kimball was there, obviously representing himself. All right. I had made a request. There were technical problems with the Board of Finance meeting that was held on the 2nd, and I've made a request to submit the town budget as submitted to us on this coming Thursday. And that will be done. That's their regular meeting. It is not in their calendar of events for the budget, but it is a noticed regular meeting that they're going to be having with the Board of Finance. Oh,
Bill, as a Board of
Yes.
Selectmen, we have not even discussed the budget, much less put it in front of the Board of Finance.
it is in draft form and it's on the agenda to be discussed today. If for some reason our board is not comfortable with making a preliminary presentation, that request can certainly be withdrawn.
So I don't think, Roger, I don't think you even have the breakdown of the departments provided. I happened to pick mine up this evening. It was in
I'm going,
our
I'm looking at
box.
breaking it up right now.
Right. So we haven't had a chance to review this, Bill.
I believe you were both given notice on Friday that they were in your boxes, and I understand that's
No.
also short notice. Chris, there was not emails gone out to Roger and Catherine about that?
Yes, there was an email sent to them.
I suspect we're all climbing over emails regarding the P and Z hearing. So Friday, what, afternoon, we were told these were on our boxes?
Friday afternoon, we received a final draft from our finance office around 2 or 3 o'clock on Friday. Immediately put the packages together, and that email went out.
So the packages together, and by the way, we haven't even named who's going to be on the Capital Improvement Committee. We have a recommendation that you sent out, Bill, but we don't have those people meeting to talk about what the capital improvements will be. Is that also what you've asked to have on Thursday's agenda?
If you don't mind, I'd like to address this when we get to that part of the agenda. There is a meeting set up with the Capital Improvement Committee for tomorrow at 6 here in the town office building.
I'm sorry, when was that?
Tomorrow at 6.
And anybody can attend?
Absolutely.
So I will be attending that meeting. I don't know if we have to call a special Board of Selectmen meeting to have more than one selectman there.
If you and Roger want to attend as members of the public, I believe you can. If you want to notice it as a special selectmen's meeting, we'll have to reschedule it.
I know I will be attending. Sure call if whether it gets noticed or not.
Okay, I'm going to proceed with the first selectmen's briefing. Tank replacement has been confirmed. The tank will be on site on June 16th. Coincidentally, that's the day after the school is dismissed for the summer break. School roof update. We've got some bonding issues to consider. We're talking the bond resolution that was approved at town meeting a week ago last Saturday did take into consideration if we need to make interim bond arrangements for upfront money for architectural or engineering. I've had several discussions with Jim Rupert. He is going to be calling a building committee meeting. He's been waiting for they wanted to invite, they thought it was important. I think it's a good idea. The clerk of the works from the roof project at E.O. Smith, who has offered to give his expertise and sit in on a question and answer situation with our building committee. Incidentally, I've also advised Jim and the committee, as well as Cindy, of our recommendation that we consciously consider putting a clerk of the works on our project. And Jim was acceptable for that. But we did have, Chris had a brief conversation with Mike Serrano from Friars today, trying to get an idea of what we're talking about money, because I've had discussions with both bond counsel and Mark Chapman as to the means to do it. If we wanted to do a interim bond issue for a smaller amount, both of them recommended that if it's $1 million or more, they would recommend going that way. If it was less, that we could consider two alternatives. One would be going to our private bank and trying to take a short-term note on that. Of course, it'd be an interest charge on that. And the other method that they both suggested was if the amount was in the area of 100 to 200,000, we could, like we're doing with the STEEP grant, I've also talked to our auditors about that, lend the money to ourselves with the idea that it would be reimbursed. But those are things we don't need a decision right now. And as I get more information, I'll certainly let the board know. But they are items that are coming up. We've locked in our fuel and heating costs at a considerable savings over what we had last year. We've locked in diesel at the 303 a gallon. Last year, we had locked in 368. We have locked in for heating oil at a rate of 292. This year's figure was 356 a gallon. And a new item that we've locked in is our gallon for regular gasoline, and we've locked that in at 280. And obviously, there are proportionate savings on particularly those first two items. New gas tank has been installed and is operational. I have not got confirmation from the building department that we're ready to start utilizing it and actually filling the tank yet. I'm anticipating that before the end of this week. And the only other thing on my updates that I would, well, two things. One, as Mr. Ralston already mentioned, but there is a planning and zoning meeting to continue the recessed public meeting regarding the development project for the Exit 72 development. And that's going to be planning and zoning will have a Zooming meeting on the 13th, beginning at 7 o'clock. The other item, I got confirmation today from the assessor, our grand list went up a total of 0.80%, which if we figure it, and there's no other way to figure it this time, at an equivalent of what we would save if the mill rate remains the same as it is today, that would be an additional revenue of $92,473. I sent that both to the Board of Finance and to our treasurer, just to get into the mix on revenues. Any questions on any of that, or any questions about anything else? God bless you. Moving on, item 5 on the agenda is acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21st. I will entertain a motion.
That was our last meeting, correct?
Correct.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, where is the video from that meeting?
We'd have to ask Mike. My understanding it was up.
You were the one that recorded the meeting? It's not out there.
I don't believe I recorded it. I believe it was an ongoing recording that had already been hosted that we had no control over.
No. What do you mean an ongoing recording?
It was hosted by Taish, but they couldn't host it in person.
That was the Board of Finance meeting. Our meeting you hosted.
I don't believe so.
Yes, because you told me you couldn't stop the meeting to have an executive session.
That's because Taish was in control of it and we did not have a host. Why don't we postpone the acceptance of those minutes and I'll get those
Yeah.
answers for you.
Yes, I would prefer that. Thank you.
I assume, Roger, you'll withdraw your motion? Okay. All right, hear from boards, commissions, and committees. Hear from boards, commissions, and committees. Hearing none. Item 7, old business, status of the Ashford School Child Care proposal by the Recreation Commission. I believe Chris had emailed you the 3 applications from applicants that we have for that. And I'd like to discuss about setting up interviews. My thought was that if either Roger or Catherine have the time to be on that interview committee, we would do that, have David Roston, Sherry York sit in as also interviewers. And I was thinking of asking, I haven't done it, I wanted to discuss it with you folks first, Karen Zulik to sit in as a parent. And Karen was heavily involved when the after-school program was originally set up with EastCon. And she has an intimate knowledge of that. So I was
Let me make
thinking-
sure. Oh,
I was thinking of recommending that as being the interview committee. And then that committee would make recommendations to our entire board. And
So-
we could interview if we wanted to after that.
let's be clear about what these interviews are supposed to accomplish. Originally, the interviews were to find out if there was even a viable group of people to work on that, on the after-school program. Is now what you're saying, because certainly the Board of Selectmen hasn't made a decision about whether we're going forward with an after-school program. So what is the purpose of the interviews? I just want to make sure we're clear.
To find out if the three applicants are viable. And if so, to determine, we would be hiring 2 or 3 positions. One would be a local administrator at the school for it, an assistant for that position, and then an assistant to that.
So again, we're interviewing to determine if there is a viable field of candidates for an after-school program, but we have not decided whether there will be an after-school program.
Correct,
And these candidates understand that?
correct.
Okay, I'd like to be on that committee.
Good, good. Is there any opposition to me asking Karen Zulik?
No.
And
No, none at all.
and David and Sherry?
All good.
Well, David's the chair of the
Rec committee?
rec committee. And Sherry wouldn't be administering this program, correct?
That's correct. But she has been involved, obviously, doing a lot of legwork and is very familiar with the needs and working with the school up there on an informational basis.
Actually, it was my understanding that Mr. Rawson had done more of that legwork.
He-
If she needs to be there, fine. But we certainly saw her reaction during one of our meetings when we said that, we didn't know that we had a program, and also that she had mentioned she wanted to take any extra monies from this program and put them into something else that she has, which is not in keeping with what we were thinking at all.
Both of those things have been clarified with her.
Okay,
All right, let me talk to Karen and then we'll send out an email and try to set up a convenient day for you and the rest of the committee, Catherine, to do some interviews. Would you like to chair that committee, Catherine?
are you saying that it's within our purview to be doing, be doing this kind of thing?
I believe so. That committee will then make a recommendation, I assume through their chairman, of their findings as a result of the interviews. And then the ultimate decision will be made by the entire board.
I'll chair it
Okay,
under those circumstances, yes.
we'll communicate more about that. Thank you very much. All right, under item 8, new business. 22, 23, 24 budget and request to Board of Education for extension of the Board of Finance, excuse me, on presentation date. And as I mentioned, because of frankly us not being ready or this office not being ready for presentation for several reasons, I had asked the Board of Finance to delay our presentation to this week. We've got our packages that Sherry and her crew diligently put together last week. Sherry Susie, which much appreciation. And that you folks have something that Sherry is with us today. If you'd like to go over things. What I was hoping to do was at least go over our Board of Selectmen. First of all, Sherry's prepared a cover sheet on this. It breaks down the, as they sit today, the recommendations or the requests from the different departments.
A cover sheet?
A summary sheet.
I'm looking at the pile that was in my box.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing a cover sheet. So please tell me what it looks like.
If I can step in, Bill.
You sure can.
Is
Okay,
that the one that says draft 3/6/223? I mean,
yes,
yeah, 2023?
basically it's the very first page, Catherine. It says the expenditures and it has all of the departments.
You may not realize that we got multiple things, okay? So bear with me.
Not a
Uh,
problem.
The thickest one.
Well, the thickest one doesn't have the cover page. It's another one that does. So let's see, we have all of these.
Yep.
Just so you know.
Yeah,
All right, so it's pretty
It's-
impossible to go through all of them.
there's,
Ask some decent questions.
there's
guess-
one page that has, it has the expenditures and it has every department, basically it gives you their total of every department. So there's, says expenditures, actual budget, expenditures to date, proposed, percent change and increase plus or minus.
Yeah, I don't see that. I
It's
see,
kind of, it's a small, the print on it is smaller, so it's a little different than the rest of the,
and you say that that is on the, it's a
That was
cover
the-
page?
that was the very first sheet of the packet that was clipped together with all of the Excel spreadsheet. That's it
This
right
one?
there. Yes.
See that, Bill? Okay, thank you.
Yep. So
That all right?
this in a nutshell will give you every single department, what was actual spent in 21-22 per audit, what is budgeted for this 22-23 year, expenditures as of 3/2, and then what is being proposed from all the departments, and then it'll give you a percent change and what the increase or decrease is. And then the next pages on that clipped packet was the individual pages. So it'll give you your selectmen page going right down the line. And if I had any narrative from any of the departments, I included that behind the request.
Okay, so I'm flipping the narratives because some of them are upside down in here. I was looking for the one for the town clerk.
Town
Let
clerk.
me ask Bill, where would the stipend be for the citizen?
Well, after we go over whatever we're doing, I have some recommendations. Let me go over those first. Just for consideration by our board. First one
So-
would be consideration of increasing the yearly salary for the youth service coordinator. The second one was hire a new transfer station, DPW handyman, handy person.
Okay, these aren't written down anywhere, right, Bill?
No,
No.
they're just things I wanted to mention and go over. Repair municipal building, town office building, Knowlton Hall. This would be for, and there's a package in the capital non-reoccurring for an explanation, but it would be for painting, repair of the siding, patching and that sort of thing. New and repair outside display signs at Pompey Park, Route 74, and various existing signs that are in somewhat disrepair. And then the last one that I had here was consider town clerk's request for citizen compensation in the amount of $5,200 annually.
Okay, and
None
so
of
we're
those,
gonna,
none of
we're
those,
gonna we're gonna cover those all individually?
that's what I was hoping to do, yes. I don't believe any of those figures, although a couple of them are in the capital non-reoccurring recommendations. But the bulk of them, I don't believe any of those, Sherry, are in your budget book.
No, they're not, because that was something that you were going to address at this meeting with those items.
Correct. So just a quick summary, and we can get into this more. As it stands right now, the selectmen's budget is a decrease of 1.02%, which equates to just over $39,000. The Board of Education budget stands, and this was with an adjustment was made after we locked in those fuel prices, of a 3.61%, which equates to $309, $300,981. And the E.O. Smith budget of a 6.24 increase, which is a $218,403 increase. The overall average of the budget would be a (8.83% budget over last year's total, equivalent to $480,219. Now, I will say that our budget, I took the liberty of telling Sherry that I anticipated we would not be recommending the $50,000 in fuel contingency that was in last year's budget. That's already been deducted. And then there were a couple of other small ones that I noticed Sherry included in deductions. I took 200. We had an informal discussion and went through all of our budgets, but I took 2,000 from our part-time salary clerk with the Board of Selectmen. And I also, under the Highway Department, reduced our highway foreman regular annual budget. Sherry, I don't remember that off the top of my head. It's in the packet.
Bill, you said part-time salary clerk for the selectmen?
Correct.
You, part-time,
Wages,
say it again?
it'd be in the very next,
Part-time wages.
yep, the part-time wages, 51560 is the account number. It'd be on the
No,
second
I'm not gonna be
page,
able to look it up that fast, but
second page.
no, that's okay. I'm asking him a question about it. So that's really taking what we've done with our finance department so far. And it's adjusting for that. Is that correct?
No, that's strictly, that was a part-time line, wage line item that we had in the selectmen's budget. And we have not expended any money out of that line item. And that's why I,
Oh, okay. I thought you were, I didn't know you were talking selectmen's budget on that. Okay, thank you.
but how would you like to proceed from here, Roger, Catherine? Would you like to go department by department? Do you want to have a few more days to look this over and I just present it intact to the Board of Finance as a draft that we have not? Our recommendations for cuts in this budget would be made the following week, which would be on their budget schedule.
Well, if I understand correctly, you had things that you were going to talk about individually that would be increases to the budget. So let's just slow down here for a second. Okay, I would have loved to have had more opportunity to read through this to see what the individual departments had to say, not just look at some totals here. So what you're saying, if I understand what you're saying, Bill, is you want to give us some more time to look through this, but go and present this as a preliminary. The Board of Selectmen didn't do what they should have done yet, and present it to the Board of Finance in that fashion. I hate to be so blunt, but that's kind of what is coming across. If so, you said that the Board of Finance would then have an opportunity to do further cuts if they chose.
On their
So that would-
following meeting,
Right, but
Board
the
of
thing
Selectmen
is,
is asked to make recommendations on all of the budgets.
yeah, but the thing is, we haven't had an opportunity to look at what you're talking about as potential increases to the budget.
That's correct. And that's what I was hoping to discuss tonight.
I think we can discuss that tonight. I don't know that we're gonna have resolution on it, but definitely to understand it, because we don't have that written down anywhere, as far as I can tell. I would have loved to have had some kind of a summary that said, here are some additional things that we may want to consider. But if you want to go through them, I have to, I'm kind of, anybody who's just listening, which is all of us, we kind of have to write it down for ourselves as you're talking about them. So you want to start talking about those?
Sure. The only thing with the youth service, we're still getting her salary, right now, we're paying Melissa $51,811 annually.
Yeah,
But she is subsidized by several other sources.
okay. How much?
And just to go over those, DCF subsidizes that salary with a matching grant of $14,102.
Yeah,
I just received this today, so I have not had an opportunity to go over this with Melissa. There's
that's
also additional funds of $7,299 for COVID funding that I understand could also be used for salary.
that COVID funding is just for 2023-24.
That's my understanding. We have not confirmed that yet, but I would assume that that's correct, Kat.
Well, all COVID funding ends, we have to have a plan for it by the end of this year, and then we have to expend it by the end of 2024. So it's not like that's going to be something, if we give her that money now, then it's going to be taken away later, unless we subsidize it in another fashion.
I'm not sure the COVID funding that we're talking about here is the ARPA funding.
Oh. What do you know about it,
It's
Sherry? Do you know anything about that?
I am not aware of any additional funding for COVID. I know they've been talking about additional monies, but I've not seen anything yet on my side.
All right,
I
thank you.
just know the ARPA money, of course, like you had stated, you have to have it earmarked, and then it's, you have to spend it by the end of 2024.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
earmarked by that, and you can still spend, but
So
I've
one
not
thing
heard of anything additional, but that doesn't mean there isn't anything in the works.
So that means that we would have to confirm, to understand what the impact is here, we'd have to confirm that in fact, there will be COVID funding for next year,
Correct.
if I get it straight. Bill, was there any other subsidies?
There's also a state of Connecticut DCF amount of $56.78 for program funds. I'm going to assume
56.
that those cannot be used for salary, but I have not clarified that yet.
So the 5678, is that 5,678?
That's correct.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. You never know with the state,
Mhm.
it could be pennies. So it's
Now, the
56.
Ashford School Readiness
Yep.
Grant, they pay to the town $3,881. And I believe that goes to that 51,000 in salary that we pay Melissa.
Okay, so that's offsetting town cost for it.
I believe so.
Okay. Anything else?
Then there's a SURAC program funds in the
How do you
amount
spell-
of SERAC.
Thanks.
Do you know what that is, Sherry?
You've got that one on me. I've
Okay,
not heard of that one.
that's in the amount of $655.15. That's also titled, and I'm assuming Chris got these from Melissa herself today. I haven't had a chance to go over them with her, but those are also titled program funds.
Okay,
Okay.
so, and is there anything else?
No, other than her annual salary that we're showing on the books, again, is $51,811.
So it almost looks like
Oh.
for her salary, that it's the 51,811 that we pay and the 3,881 that the school readiness grant pays on top of that. Is that correct?
Well, I hate to guess at that. I think that that's correct, but I also think that the 14,000, the state matching grant salary of
Yeah.
14,102 goes directly to her. I
All
don't
right.
believe that's incorporated into the 51.
When she made the request, did she request a specific amount? I don't have that like immediately at my fingertips.
She, do you want to answer that, Sherry? I didn't.
Yep,
Yeah.
hang on. For youth services, she requested her salary for $64,854.
Is that because, I wonder if that's because that's kind of lined up with what our administrators, our other departments get. Aside from the fact that she, naturally sounds like she would like to
She
get more
will,
money.
she will be in the morning and I'll go over that with her and get clarity on that.
Okay,
I've got
All
the
right.
detail. Hold on. The CERAC funds are
Yeah.
a substance abuse program. It's a grant.
okay,
So that's
So
not
very good.
salary.
It's an annual grant that's awarded to one organization in 41 towns we serve. So
right, it's for programs.
yes.
Okay. Okay,
Let's see. This-
all right, so Bill, you'll find out which ones
I'll
go
get
into her
clarification
actual
on that.
salary, so we understand what it is.
Yep.
What was the next thing on your list?
Hire a new transfer station DPW / handy person.
And how much will that, that's to replace someone?
No, that would be a new person to handle different odd jobs that we have around as a handy person. I've got a lot of painting and some repairs to be done. A utility person to drive during storms or emergencies for DPW. And to help man a station at the transfer station to check permits and everything. What I'm hoping to do is set up a separate booth at the entrance of the transfer station. I've discussed this with the transfer station committee to stop cars, check their stickers. If they don't have them, ask them to leave or make other arrangements.
Right, so Bill, if I understand correctly, the transportation committee is one that the Board of Selectmen formed, and so they're going to come back with their recommendations, and we as a board are going to decide what to do with that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're planning for the eventual need for this
I'm
person. I
throwing-
know that it's needed for repairs in the buildings and painting, et cetera, since we've had such a terrible time with that. Then the utilities, and then the other thing, certainly in terms of the fourth person, it's really a fourth person at the transfer station. Is that correct?
Well, we have two regular people up there and then a non-union position. That is a fill-in right now, Gary Zalanka. You could say we have a.
I actually thought he joined the union.
No, he has not.
Oh, because he's part-time.
Well, that's questionable, but we have not been petitioned for him to join the union.
Okay, so he was brought on as part-time.
That was my, well, you'd probably know that better than I do, but.
That's
that-
why I'm saying it. He
that's
was
my
brought on as,
understanding, Yeah,
he was brought on as part-time. And it was, at the time, it was really aimed at making sure we had a person for the put and take during COVID.
oh, I think it's a good idea.
Well, and not only that, that particular person has, as far as I can tell, has done a very nice job and is very good with the public.
I've received nothing but compliments for that particular.
Right, and you know, it was a really good hire. The but now you're saying you need another person down there.
Well,
So that,
I guess what I'm saying is that that third person, and we're not gonna get into personality, who it may be, may then become a permanent person.
okay, so what's the amount that's associated with this?
Roughly, I've looked at 40,000 annually.
That's it.
And do you have a timing, any kind of a rough timing of when we could put the new program in place where this person would be actually helping with the checking stickers, et cetera?
I'm shooting for the beginning of summer. There's gotta be some modifications. I'm pricing out what a new little shack would be for us up there.
Yeah,
I'm trying to come up with, I'm told there are a number of used ones on the market. I have
Yeah.
not come up with that yet. And I'm told that, you know, our NIPS funds
yeah,
that we got, I'm told those,
10,000.
yes, I'm told those monies can be used towards that.
That would be a perfect use for those monies.
Yeah.
Um,
And it has to be up at the that money has to be utilized somehow up at the transfer station.
and that shack needs to be, you know,
We
a
did air conditioning.
responsible, it needs to be a responsible building. In other words, it's got to be able to be weather worthy, so to speak.
We have electricity already up there. from,
Yeah,
guess, a
I know.
previous building years ago. But the units that I'm looking, they call them plug-in units. They
Yep.
come with the electric already laid out in them with air conditioning and heating.
Yeah.
Nice little contained units, but they're built specifically for that. They have windows on all four sides.
Yep.
Two of them are sliding panels.
And in terms of any extra insulation, we can do that ourselves.
They say they're fully insulated. I'm not sure I'd want to be in there in the middle of winter, but
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
the price that I've so far come up with, those are $8,000 to $10,000 for the shack. Although I'm told by Joe that they're available out there for $4,000 or $5,000 used. I have not been able to find those yet.
How big is this? Is it
It's
Is it
four,
like a
four by,
like a 6x6?
it's a 4x6 or a 4x8.
Yeah, 4,000 is kind of low for that. Having bought a couple of sheds ourselves.
Yeah. You want to sell one?
You cannot have my, everybody wants to call it a she shed, but it's really a gardening shed. It's been painted, it's got a rug, it's
Right.
nice. But I paid more than 10,000 for it and I was getting a deal. And it was really rough cut, let me tell you.
So far, the 10,000 that I've got is from a Pennsylvania outfit that would deliver it, but I'm trying to see if we can do better than that. But they're in the area of $10,000. I
Okay,
found one
under-
that's 8 that's not quite as sturdy.
Okay. All right, so that's $40,000 plus, this is a full-time position?
I was thinking 30 hours or less.
So you're thinking part-time with no benefits?
Well, we're gonna have to visit that and see how that works out. If it's
Okay, so
30
that-
hours, you have to get health benefits.
Yes,
If it's less
Mhm.
than that, then you're exempted from that part of the benefits.
Mhm.
there's a part of me that says, how fair is it to have somebody who is doing our painting and any repairs and, work around the utility stuff and then working at the transfer station in basically multiple roles, how fair it is to have that be a part-time person.
Well, that's one
So-
of the things that we'll have to determine. We
Okay.
want to be fair. But we
Yeah,
also-
and you want to have somebody who's truly invested.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to be able to hire somebody that's comfortable with it, it's going to be with us for a while and not hire somebody
Exactly.
here.
Exactly. Okay, what's the third thing on your list?
Okay, the third thing on my
No,
list
third.
is municipal building repairs for the town office building, Knowlton Hall. And any other building. I know the fire department is in need of some exterior painting. Most of it encompasses painting. We've got, as you're probably aware of, Catherine, we've got some interior work here with patching holes in walls and paint that's deteriorating quick. Those are the sort of things. And in the package for the capital non-reoccurring, I do give a little narrative on that.
Well, that's what I was wondering, is if this really fits under capital improvements, but I don't know.
Well, I think that's what we have to sort out.
All And how much you're talking about for this item?
10,000.
Okay, thank you.
Now, of course, that.
And Roger,
would
and
cover-
Roger, and Roger, I know I'm kind of pushing this along. Please jump in if I'm
Okay, no,
pushing too fast.
I'm drinking it
okay?
all in.
He's writing. All right,
And number 4,
we've got, the fourth one is new and repair outside display signs. One for Pompey Hollow Park, we've got a projected cost of about $4,100 that I'm trying to shop around. Come
that's
up
3,100,
4,100.
4,100. And are these the wooden signs? What are these?
They're typical, what I'm trying to do is come up with a sign that's not the type of materials that we've used on our existing signs, because they are deteriorating and falling apart. Most of them, for lack of a better term, are compressed boards, and they're not holding up well underneath weather. Even the one out here in front of town office building, if you go over and take a close look at it, it's starting to deteriorate and needs work.
I am surprised that they're made of compressed boards.
Yeah.
That anybody,
Compressed boards.
so you're looking at what, something metal?
I'm open for suggestion of PVC, metal,
Yeah.
something along those lines. I don't like metal boards.
No, and PVC is kind of not very friendly. Okay, so, and you came up with an amount of 4,100. What was that based on? Using what?
Oh, that 4,100 was, we got from the same sign people that have made our other signs. That we started off with them at about $1,800 a sign. They're now up to 4,100.
So these are the ones,
I would get multiple signs. Those are of like materials of what we have right now.
and the materials we have right now are that particle stuff.
Not throughout, but part of them are particle board. I haven't taken any apart, but that's the impression I have. That's the way some of them are disintegrating.
We could use ARPA money for this.
I think we could. And I'm thinking, I
It's-
just put
and
down
it's-
a rough estimate of $10,000.
Okay, so I'm gonna, okay, so it's really 10,000.
That 4,100 was just one sign that
Yep, got it.
actually the housing authority priced out for us.
Okay. What's the number 5 thing on your list?
Okay, that's the town clerk's stipend for preparation of the citizen in the amount of $5,200 or $100 a week, which he's sent us a request to consider.
Yep, that was sent a couple months ago, if I recall.
That's correct.
So a lot of work goes into the citizen, and it's both science and art when you're doing it. So, what is your thinking on this?
I think it's a good value as our that's right now in our line item. And our line item for that particular under publications is $29,000 a year. So
Okay.
it would be a considerable increase to that existing line item.
But you said it's already in there?
The amount that we have in there without this. Excuse me, I said 29, it's 25,000.
Okay, so it would take us to 29,2.
No, it would take us to 30.
52. I'm sorry, I'm gonna
20
look at.
25 and 52 is $30,200.
200.
Thank you for taking me back to basic math. I'm just asking, the question is actually what we have in the line item, and I'm trying to look here quickly.
25.
Yeah.
So has the 5,200 been included in the line item? No, it has not.
No, it has not.
Okay. So, we know that we're gonna have a work of something, I'm assuming a work session of some kind or recommendations being made by, I'm gonna call it our editor for the Citizen. And also we need to talk about what we're charging. And Bill, you intimated during our last meeting about who we're charging, and maybe letting some groups not be charged. I have a problem with that. I think if someone wants to put an ad in the Citizen, and they're not a town department, so to speak, that people should pay for the ad. And I don't care what organization it is. I think we should be treating everybody the same.
Well, I just know that there are some organizations. I'll mention a couple that have come to me from time to time, ASCO, the Hungarian Club, that are having difficulties with finances. And I'm not putting out and making any recommendations, but I think it's worthy of discussion when we take a look at the big picture of what we're doing with the Citizen. And I don't know about free, but I would think perhaps that we come up with a category that we could discount. But
I think-
again, it's strictly open for discussion.
Yeah, I think that would be a difficult one to manage, and I think there would be quite a hue and cry about it. The thing here in terms of this stipend, though, if Sherry were not, if Sherry were not doing the Citizen, and I think she does an exemplary job on it, okay, if she were not doing it, who would we pay to do it?
Well, either that or would, the way it sits right now, or it would become non-existent unless we got.
Yeah.
What I was surprised that I only learned a relatively short time ago. I always kind of assumed that Sherry had a volunteer support system, because as I remembered when we originated the Citizen, we had a committee. And that committee got together and it was primarily led through the town clerk's office, but
Bill?
to assist her.
It was a long time ago, and those folks used to cut and paste things to put in the Citizen. It was a hands-on job for a number of people. And they did the best job they could considering what they had to work with. But now we're electronic. Okay. And you kind of, it's almost like too many hands in the pot or too many cooks in the kitchen when you're trying to put the pieces together. I have actually observed Sherry doing this. And I know Karen will take in some of the articles, she'll kind of help organize that these are the articles we have to go in the Citizen. And then Sherry then has to figure out where they're going to go, how to fit everything into, I think it's 42 pages, if I recall.
28. I believe 28 is her goal. Sometimes it'll go to 32.
Okay. And so, some pictures get reduced. Everything's supposed to be camera ready. Even at the point of being submitted. So I'm trying to imagine how you can have multiple people in there, one, trying to put it together, or two, how timely it would be to have a committee looking at everything that's going in and going yay, nay, whatever. Because we still have people who are having trouble getting things in there into her on time anyway.
Well,
So,
I think it's worth discussion. I appreciate everything Sherry does. I've told her that on a number of occasions and shared it with as many people as I can. My problem is we're all mortal. God forbid something happened to Sherry, or whatever, just to rely on one person with
No.
nobody else knowing the makeup or what goes into that, poses a potential problem.
understood. And in fact, what should be done, I know I've talked with Sherry about this briefly, is to make sure that she has documented, here's how you do it. Okay, what are the steps that are followed? What's the procedure that's followed? So that, and what do you have to have links to? What's the software you have to have? That kind of thing, so that you have that in terms of somebody else coming on to do it. In terms of volunteers, I don't think anybody was volunteering once it went to electronic. I think it was probably too difficult to manage. So, we do need to look at this. I just think that I've seen her working in there on weekends,
She works
putting
on
this thing
weekends.
together.
She also works at home on it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, and that's on her, it's basically on her own time.
Yep.
And there should be something to, offset to some kind of remuneration for that kind of work.
just to elaborate a little more on what you were just using as an example.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to point the fingers at anybody, but we had personnel here
Yeah.
who took on an awful lot of work, didn't write down the process,
Oh,
who ended
I
up
understand.
leaving us that even with this budget process, putting a puzzle together, we've had some problems because that one person was
Yep.
doing everything and not necessarily sharing with everybody else what went into it. And thank
I think
goodness
all
we've
three,
got an experienced new person in that position right now that is sharing information, and her assistant there is picked up and learned a lot of stuff in the past 6 or 8 months. But it's a good example where if we put all of our eggs in one basket, depend on one person, and we don't document exactly what the processes are, trying to play catch up is hell.
well, I'm keen about documenting the process, making sure there's some kind of procedures that can be followed, and and checking, verifying that in fact somebody can do that.
Yep.
That's part of mitigating risk.
So
But I don't think it's fair to expect one person to work weekends and after hours to put together a town newsletter. It's a town publication without some kind of remuneration.
and I agree.
So, all right. So this is your last, this is the last one on your list?
That's my last bullet. I could probably come
So-
up with a lot more to spend money, but I try not to.
Yeah, we probably all could. So these ones add up to, let's see, 64 minus. I'm going to do a little math myself. If our man Roger hasn't already done it,
Nope.
since he's always ahead of me on this.
Not today.
3, 4, 0. So the actually
65
The-
plus whatever we end up considering for Melissa, if in fact. after
Okay,
we
so
get
bear
all
with
of
me a
these
second.
proposed.
Bear with me a second. I'm looking at youth services. Okay. And if we understand the request, she said youth services is asking for an increase of $12,043. If I got my math right. Which is pretty huge. And we have 40,000 on the DPW person. Just writing them up here. 40.
Now, in fact, I mean, one of the things we'll have to figure is that if that third person at transfer station becomes permanent part-time or permanent,
Yeah.
however we do, we will probably not need the temporary position we have up there right now, which will come off whatever cost that we're,
So the temporary position you're saying we have right now is the part-time person?
would be, yes, would basically become permanent.
Okay,
So you would
All
not
right.
have that.
So it's not additional manpower, it's just a.
okay, so that what we're paying
be
for the
offsetting.
part-time person will offset part of that 40,000.
Correct.
So, and I don't know what we're paying for the part-time person, but it's not supposed to be more than 90 hours a year, if I recall.
120.
Oh, 120.
Sherry, do you
So-
have any actual expenditures on that by any chance?
On which one, I'm
On
sorry?
the part-time transfer station?
Yep, hang on one second. The total amount for the, for all of those categories that you just talked in, the increase for Melissa, it was 78,243.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, say that one. I don't know what you were talking about there.
I'm
So-
sorry, Catherine. The difference between, what Melissa was asking, the 64 and the 51 is 13 and change. And then the transfer station was 40, Knowlton Hall, building repairs was 10, display signs are 10, and then the town clerk was 52. So if you, all of those added together is 78,243.
Okay, so we know that we're going to have on that the part-time person going, replacing that with a full-time person at the DPW. That one is not going to be 40,000 net, so to speak. It's probably going to be closer to what, 28,000? Bill, somebody?
My guess is somewhere between that and a half. Do
Yeah,
we have
okay.
what we actually spent?
Bringing that up, trying to connect right now.
And the building repairs bill, I would be pushing for that to be something under capital improvement. The 10K.
Yeah.
So.
Right
you know,
now,
that-
we're paying a temporary with Gary Zalanka, 1672 an hour.
So do 120 hours at 1622.
Come on, bring up.
Well, I figured it at 1672 at 20 hours a week times 52 weeks. I come up with 17,388.80.
Close enough. Let's just say 17,000. So that off of the 40,000.
Now, that may end up not being a cost totally attributable to the transfer station. If we start counting the hours for repairs of different buildings, or if we have a storm and we don't talking to Joe, we don't think we need to require a CDL, but at least somebody that can drive a smaller, either one of our pickups or one of our smaller dumps for our dirt roads. But
We only have one smaller pickup, right? For plowing?
Joe's plows, and we have
Yes.
that new 550 that we bought. And we also have a backup smaller truck that's on its last legs.
Okay. So let's see. So that's about, I did quick math while you're talking, so it might not be accurate. So that's about, I got 22,612 instead of 40,000. So let's say 22,500.
I'm thinking if we just rounded it off to 20,000 and a cost for that third
All
permanent.
right, so
person.
that just takes us down to 20,000.
We're about a 60 with the 5 things that we've talked about here. I'm looking at, again, I'm rounding off a lot of figures, but we're looking at about a $60,000 increase.
So I'm looking at it differently. I'm looking at it as youth services, yes. DPW person, $20,000 increase. Building repair, the 10,000 going to capital improvements, not the town budget. And outside display signs going to ARPA funds, which takes 10,000 off. And then the town clerk stipend at 5,200. Yes. So that is not a huge increase, if I can get that right. So let's do, that's the 1343. The, bear with me, the 20,000 and the 5,200. It's 38,243.
Call it 40.
40.
To me,
Well,
that's more
at-
palatable. That's more palatable than the other.
At 40. Jerry, you can run figures a hell of a lot faster than I can, but at 40, it brings us to about an even, no increase budget for the Board of Selectmen,
That's what I was thinking.
for town government.
Yes. And with that, basically, some things where we are able to do some improvements. Okay, certainly transfer station. And that's going to hopefully help a bit with our tipping costs. Right?
That's
Um,
the hope.
That's going to be a culture shock for people coming in.
It will be.
Okay, and we take in, like you said, with the citizen, what we'll do is we'll look at what we're charging for ads. In
Well,
terms of
I think what
revenue
we're
for
gonna
that.
do is review our costs. We
Yep,
also, in past conversations that I've had with Sherry, is there are some of our departments that, for lack of a better term, are taking advantage and putting in too much material, trying to
Yes.
limit to 2 pages or whatever.
yep,
That way we could probably attract more advertisers.
that
if
would be
we had
good.
More room. And then look at these other things. Like I said, I'd like to at least have a discussion about nonprofits and whether or not we want to
No.
consider doing a discount or not. But discussion purposes. But no, I think those are valid. I will tell you that the capital non-reoccurring fund, we're pushing right now. And we're
So let's-
still trying to crunch figures on where we're going to be able to enhance the amounts we have. The last figure I got from Laura, we had about 630,000 in the CNR. We'd already, and you may have updated figures to this, Sherry, we'd already committed a little over 300,000 of that. And I'm not sure of the remaining 300,000, how much has been committed that we have not spent yet. Now, I've had discussions, our unfunded, undesignated fund balance as of the last audit report
Yeah,
for June 30th of 22 was 14.43%. The general goal is, as you know, Catherine, but we try to maintain a minimum of 10, and I think we like more than that. But the auditors recommend, and so does our finance advisor, consideration of anything from 10 to 15%.
right. We should
Okay.
probably be in a 12.5% to keep ourselves healthy.
I agree, and I think if we were to look at a 12%, the dollar difference between what that 14.3% is now and that 12% would be one of the resources we could do to recharge the CNR fund.
Right, and each year we do that after the audit is completed, and the thing is, let's see, did we do it?
Typically, we have a resource there because normally we don't spend all of our money. But
Right,
correct me, Sherry, if I'm wrong, I believe we were $5,000 overspent this year. So we do not have that resource to fall back on
okay, overspent in what?
in the overall budget for the town
In the
government.
overall capital improvement budget? Is that what you're
No,
talking about?
no.
Mm-mm.
The
Oh.
overall budget of the town government side
Oh,
was
uh,
overspent by 5,000.
yes, that's one resource, but the other one is the Board of Finance each year is supposed to take a look at our undesignated fund, and they're supposed to make an adjustment, if appropriate, to keep it, any, how do I put this? Anything over the threshold of the 10 to 15%. Each year they're supposed to decide what percentage they have. I know, I wrote
Yeah,
these,
and
I wrote these
I've
policies.
I've already had discussions about the board, with the Board of Finance about that, and
Okay,
we're
and
all
so they
agreed
can,
that's a resource. How
Yeah,
much
they-
that is, I don't know at this point.
right, well, if you've got 14.43% in there,
Our
I
math,
see Sherry's doing something, so
our
I'm
math
thinking she's
expert can
thinking.
get that probably pretty quick.
Okay, so that's money to offset, if they can go to capital non-recurring, and they should be doing that every year.
They did it last year,
Yeah, I don't know of any year where they haven't. I
right?
mean, literally, that's how we funded capital non-recurring, plus any manna that fell from heaven, during the year.
Well, if
that we
you
can put
look
in
at,
there.
if you look at this year's budget,
Yeah,
just a quick snapshot of it. We have not had to dip into that 50,000 contingency that we put in for fuel because we were concerned about last year. We have not filled Cheryl's position. We have not filled the, for lack of a better term, roving clerk position. There's, and from what I'm hearing, I probably shouldn't say anything. Right now, our DPW budget for snow plowing, overtime and that is all, we've got quite a bit of non-used expended funds in there. So what I'm getting at, I think we've got a pool in this year's budget that'll increase our comfort level of monies that's going to be left over as of June 30th of this coming year.
that would be good.
I've done
as-
a rough tabulation and came up with somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000.
Okay, so one thing we always have to keep in mind is we want to come as close as we can to what we budgeted for, because we taxed everybody for that. So when we say that we have $200,000 or $250,000 that we didn't spend that we taxed for, that doesn't ring well.
Doesn't ring well.
Granted, we can use that money and it can go into capital non-recurring. It's just we need to, try hard not to have so much, either not to ask for so much Okay, or not to, if we ask for it and, use it where we think we're gonna need to use it.
And I think we
So
all
you're
make
saying the 50,000 we didn't have to use, right?
correct.
So when we're looking at this draft budget, that 50,000 is no longer included in this,
I
correct?
had Sherry pull that out, correct.
Okay, so when when it was pulled out, what it did was where we had increases, it kind of offset a number of those increases. That's why we came out with a close to 0% increase. I'm just gonna say close to, right?
Correct.
Okay. So. And we still think we could come up with, we could possibly have like 200,000 left over.
Well,
It's a light winter.
it's a very light winter. Our
Okay, that makes sense. That
salt-
part makes
our
sense.
salt use, our overtime costs that we anticipated
Yeah,
are all positively affected by a light winter.
okay,
Now, as I'm talking about that with you this weekend, we will probably have 10 feet of snow and a blizzard, but there's a potential there for considerable savings. Those are
Okay.
something that depends on Mother Nature, and God bless her, we can't predict what she's doing from day to day lately, but
Okay.
the salary, don't forget, between benefits and the salary for the administrative aid position we had in the finance office, and that total about 117,000 a year
Mhm.
with benefits. Now, we've hired a new treasurer. Those monies are being depleted somewhat, nowhere near what those costs were. Now,
Mhm.
I still want to do a reorg and on how we're going to set up that finance committee. I think Sherry and Laura are doing a yeoman's job right now, and we're relooking at all of that. I still
And
think,
Sherry, I'm hoping that you're able to bring a fresh perspective into it, having stepped into it. And when I do mean stepped into it, to be able to, kind of objectively look at it and go, this is how it could be improved.
Absolutely. And I know, this budget has been delayed a little bit, but again, stepping into somebody else's shoes, trying to figure out, some of the history of where and how this was made up, that was a little challenging because I scratched my head a few times on some things that, how they were split. And I'm like, why was that? And then I, people have come in and given me history. And I'm like, makes sense now. But, that took a
Yeah.
little bit of time. And, I apologize for a little bit of that, but
and it was
I'd
not
rather be a
documented.
little bit on the, task, and have it correct than having just throw numbers and then like having to fix things and like, then it, look at a bottom line and go,
Yeah,
Now,
I know the
you-
feeling. I have extra mucking boots here if you ever need any.
Sherry, you've also converted over to Excel with all your spreadsheets in that, correct?
I do. And, I like Excel because I can add a little more detail to it and, yeah, Infinite Visions, it's okay with the budget. I don't like their budget only because you can't do data and you're doing more pages of, trying to find history and then trying to put a book together. And of course, some of this book was put together, some pages to it. So I'm looking to clean it up a little bit more.
Okay.
But
So Sherry, what you're essentially doing is you're downloading from the system and you're able to download from the system, drop it into Excel so that it can be presented well, for one, and so that and comments can be put in there or whatever.
yes,
And we can also use it. I used to have an Excel workbook when I was chair of the Board of Finance
Yep.
that had, multiple sections and would calculate the mill rate. off of
that's what
every-
I have. You
Yeah.
will see that's eventually where this whole thing goes, because
Right.
basically I have each budget page, then I have a revenue page, and then it's, kind of, smushed down to different departments. But then I have a mill rate calculator at the end. So,
Good.
right now, I mean, based on based on the grand list, but understand that this can change because there's some BAA meetings that are going to take place. So that could go down a little bit, but 1 mil right now is roughly equal to $361,243. That's what a
Okay.
mill is based on the, the list that Lynn gave me,
Yeah.
with the understanding that it could change, based on BAA meetings that are happening during this month of March.
I was surprised. I had a meeting with her today when I got back from court.
Yep.
And she's anticipating that grand list actually to increase. I know she had some concerns
Yes.
because of the BAA
Yep.
of them making adjustments and it may go down. Today, she's seen some very distinctive increases in campers and a lot of the mobile stuff. She
Yes.
thinks there's going to be not a significant, but an increase.
Still, it'll
Every
help.
little bit helps.
Yes. And the difference, you're talking about, bringing that the percentage down for the undesignated hold on.
Undesignated fund balance.
Yes, thank you. So based on last year's number, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from around 250,000 to $268,000. If you were to reduce that 14, I'm just rounding at 14 to 12.
So which is what you're saying is that
You could-
to take that much out of it to put into capital non-recurring.
Okay.
One thing I'm loath to do is take money from the undesignated fund balance
Yep.
to offset taxes, a tax increase, because that's a slippery slope.
Well, yeah,
Years
but this-
ago, they take 200,000 out of there and, and it
Yes.
just got worse.
Yes,
But
that is
also,
correct.
Years ago, we did not have a CNR.
Yep.
I know,
So that makes a big difference.
since I
So
worked on that.
you could take, I mean, to be safe, you could possibly, take $250,000 from that undesignated to move it to CNR. You
Yeah.
could do that.
That's a good
Yeah.
figure to know. I'll share that also with the Board of Finance.
Yeah, I would make that as a kind of a recommendation, to help
You know,
them.
That's a rough,
Um,
number, just, doing it on the calculator quick here, so.
Yeah,
Since we have our finance expert with us,
Ah,
and before I forget it, I had a talk both with Kit at the Senior Center and with Sherry York with Recreation about some of their program management was having a difficulty because, for instance, they have very popular trips at the Senior Center to Tunxus.
Mhm.
And people pay the money for that. She pays that Tunxus trip out of her monies. Then the money that is generated back in revenues goes into the general fund.
mhm.
So she ends up being short on the individual functions.
so it doesn't really
Sherry-
treat it like Sherry's does, which is, it's money that goes back into the, it's, money expended on programs, or the money that comes in from programs is used to help pay for programs.
Correct. And instead of regenerating to have more, their operating funds are decreased. But Sherry had experience with this in a couple of towns. Maybe you can just elaborate on your thought. I
Yes.
believe we were talking about an activities fund.
Yes, I've dealt with activities fund. So basically, it is a fund, like for recreation, I'm gonna just use it. We have a recreation activities fund, which is set up for programs, that the director wants to do. So let's say wants to go do,
Yep.
Yankees Red Sox game. So we put out the money in the activities fund, say there's an account that's set up and it's got 10 grand in it. So we're going to do the recreation act, a trip, Yankees, Red Sox, charge X amount of dollars that goes into this activities fund. So basically he covers, they cover the cost of the bus and the tickets. may make $10 off of that. So that stays in this activities fund to use for other programs that happen. And during the year, you could do what it could, the sky's the limit, you know, it's not something that's budgeted, because if you budget it, then it has to be very specific and you can't use it for other things because it's been budgeted. If it's the
Right.
activities account, it's there. And if the program doesn't happen, well, then, you know, if you take it in registrations, reimburse people and you don't have it, you don't lose anything, or,
So
you know,
one of the things we did a number of years ago is we reduced the number of funds that we have, the special funds, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
First of all, because I think we didn't know how much was really in each and we didn't know what they were for and so this kind of a thing would require having something definitive written about the fund as to how the funds could be used.
Yep.
And, you know, somewhat generalized, but certainly so that there's some flexibility in it. But
Yes.
yeah, I think that's a very good idea.
Yes.
Sherry, would those funds carry over year to year?
Yes, you don't lose them neither. They
Okay.
don't,
Yes,
they
just like our other
stay-
ones.
Yes,
Okay.
And the thing is, the only, bear with me, the only authority that can set up these funds, approve the, having a new fund, is the Board of Finance.
finance. Mhm.
Yep. You know,
Yep.
this is something that
Yeah,
if we
my
do a little
intention
homework,
is
we
if
could
we're all on the
recommend.
same page on that, then
Yeah,
we would make,
Yeah.
I would make a recommendation based on
Exactly.
our board's feeling
and
and our.
yeah, and
trend.
what,
You're gonna be at the next meeting anyway, Sherry, Board of Finance meeting.
Yeah, of course.
well, what I was gonna say is what they really need to have is, you know, not a lot of verbal stuff, you know, they need to have things they can deliberate with. So
Mhm.
they would need a write-up that says, you know, something to the effect of recommendation to create a new fund. In this particular case, it would be for
Senior
I don't know,
Center and Rec
the
Department.
senior center activities fund,
Mhm.
and have a specific kind of write-up that goes with it.
I've
So
asked,
that,
I've asked Sherry to put together a little narrative.
Yep.
Sherry,
Now-
you're gonna have to be everywhere.
I know,
Yes.
I know. I mean, I was thinking, you know, as I, you know, propose this maybe, you know, after budget time a little bit here,
Yes.
because,
Yeah,
you know, they have enough that they're gonna be trying to digest. And then having this thrown on that, you
Right.
know, they'll be like,
they're,
"Oh,
they're drinking from a fire hose right now. So this is not the thing to add to it. But yes, that kind of a concept. Now, is that the only town department that would need that, or is that something that is also appropriate for recreation?
it
Right,
could
right.
be for a rec also, that you
It
certainly
would be,
could do that.
they would have a separate one, because
Yes.
I wouldn't want them combined at all.
No, no, you want two separate to keep track. But yes, you could do the same thing, because you could reduce that recreation budget, taking out some of these programs, you know, and then this would give, you know, Sherry a little more leeway, you know, say you want to do ice skating, you know, such and such, you get enough applicant, you know, enough registrations, have it, you know, and then, well, okay, now, you know, Catherine, you want to do a knitting class, you know, you're going to show.
Not in a million years.
Okay, I'm with you. I'm there with, but you know, say you wanted to do that, you could have people sign up for it, and you would get paid as the person doing the program also out of those fees.
So bear with me a second, Bill.
Yep.
So what this, one of the things when you look at Parks and Rec, and you look at the breakdown of the numbers that make it up. I
Yeah.
know I had a lot of difficulty trying to follow it before, and I didn't get a lot of information about it. So, and I see your eyebrows there. The thing is, I know that Sherry is always under pressure to bring in a certain amount of revenue, because it's to offset her department,
Mhm.
their expenses. And so when we think about it for Parks and Rec, we have to think about it in that light too. That's just another factor to look at when we do it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than the senior center is, from my perspective.
Mhm. You're
Okay,
correct. Yep.
We do have a new chairman that's been appointed with the rec, that's very familiar with that accounting procedure, from what I understand.
It's my understanding he actually put together pretty much all the numbers for what they were proposing and pretty much by himself. So,
Okay, moving right along here. Again, are there any other questions? I know that we've just touched on it.
I didn't get a chance to look through what the fire department needs.
Well, our chief is here, so we can comment. There is a bit of an increase. And from what I understand, it's
Where's
based
the
on
chief?
hours.
Where's the chief?
He's over in that corner there.
He just showed up.
Oh, I didn't see you.
I just came back in, Captain.
It was out on a call, but
So,
I have never found, I have to tell you, I've never found the fire department ask for anything they didn't really need. And I've never found them not to make a good case for it. So you're looking at an increase of
Tell you, hang on.
452,665 and no, an appropriation of that. I'm sorry, it wasn't the increase. So I'm trying to figure out what the total amount of increase is here.
the total, if I remember correctly, because I don't have it in front of me because it's in my truck because I was at the call, but it's $69,500 is the increase,
Yeah,
I believe. So
$30 more.
I'm sorry.
You're
Tell
$30
us.
more. It's $69,
$30.
$470.
Oh, 69.
$470.
The driving factor in most of the increase is just cost increases. Our cost for dispatch services is being
Yeah.
shifted in the way they bill it, so we're paying per call now instead of per capita. So there'll be they're implementing it slowly, so there'll be a slow incrementation, and then it should level off as long as our call volume doesn't increase drastically.
do you feel that that's a positive thing financially for us
Yeah,
going to
It
that?
absolutely is. In the past, what was happening was towns like Ashford or the smaller towns with a lower call volume were basically carrying the larger towns, if you will. So this will level it out, and then consequently we'll be paying just for the services we use rather than covering other people's services as well.
So if I understand correctly, what you're asking for as an increase is the difference between you've got 89,621 is your budget request. And then last year's request was 72,500. So it's a difference between the two, correct?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the total appropriation request was for last year was 383,165. And this year was the request is 452,665. So whatever the difference is in those two numbers.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing. I thought I was looking at, oh no. I got the wrong one. So sorry. So one more time, what was that last number in terms of a difference?
We're just checking here.
Hang on.
I got a feeling Sherry has it right at her fingertips.
I do.
Sherry, what is,
Go ahead,
Sherry,
Sherry.
go for it.
Okay, so what was adopted last year was 383,195. This
83,000.
year, they're requesting 452,665. So there's a difference of $69,470.
Could you repeat the last number?
Yes, 69,470. That's the difference. That's the increase that they are looking for.
Do you have a percentage with that?
Oh.
And then while you're doing that, if Paul could kind of take us through again,
Sure, I'll just,
where the areas of increase
let me
are.
borrow his copy of my budget. So personnel, as far as volunteers go, in the personnel line, there's no increase requested whatsoever. Under stations, basically it's utilities and service contracts, and that's just the increase from the vendor. And then repairs and maintenance, same thing. We're just allocating for additional expenses that have gone up. So that's
So-
that line. Vehicles, same, repairs and maintenance. We did add an additional $500 for equipment purchases. Like, everything's gone up. Anything we buy for a truck is more expensive. Operations. That's the same, repairs and maintenance. We put a little more into the supply line as well for the same reason. Anything we purchase is gone up. Administration, that's the dispatch service line, that went up by 3,000. That's what I was just referring to. That's one of the bigger increases that we had to deal with. And then down the line, insurance, the same, the increase is the same. And those are the only two increases in the admin line. Under EMS services, and this, we put this in here, and it's just basically to show you what the department is doing, because the EMS services line is removed from the final appropriations budget because the department covers it with the ambulance. It's EMS services is completely paid for through ambulance billing. So that total at the bottom, 103,580 is an increase, but it's not actually an increase for the appropriations line. And then the
Right.
staff, that's another increase, and that is, I did put in the budget for $1 per hour raise to bring my paid staff up. For the firefighter EMTs, would be at $20 an hour, and my straight EMS would be to $19 an hour. We don't have any benefits associated with that. They're basically part-time employees.
Okay,
And Paul, what are other towns paying?
Depends, between 19 and 21 for strictly EMS. Fire EMS is now up in the 25 to 27 range. A starting person with no experience can get hired and be put through the academy, and they'll pay them $23 to $25 an hour as basically a rookie firefighter.
Now, are you comfortable that you're gonna attract what you need with the 20?
No,
No?
But I'm also realistic in the fact that the town really can't afford it. I mean, we're doing what we can. I think with the 20, at least we have a shot at attracting some people that might be looking to gain some experience. And if I pair them with people who are experienced, and it also gives the opportunity for some of the people who have come up in my department who want to now become a paid personnel to do that and not have to go to another town. As far as EMS goes, we cover EMS only from midnight to 6 a.m. So that's why there's two different cost breakdowns. If I have somebody that's a firefighter certified during that midnight shift, they're paid as a firefighter because they respond as a firefighter. We have had, like every department in the state of Connecticut and Massachusetts and surrounding areas, we have trouble getting people. It's difficult. I call it the moving pool, because what's happened is now departments are having trouble, so they increase their pay, and then the whole pile of people move from one to the other. So
right.
it works great for the department that just increased their pay because they get the people, but the department that can't do it. So, I had hoped to add a couple hours to that midnight shift to start it a little earlier, but I just didn't think it was a feasible thing to do right now for the town. So that's where we stand. That's what there is. Like I said, there is a raise, but I'm competing with $21 an hour.
Yeah,
It's 18 right now for EMS only. So that's a $3 difference. Even cutting it to $2, I don't know. It depends on where you live, right? If you live close to Ashford, you might want to drive to another town for the extra $2.
right.
But
So
it-
Bill,
Sure.
this increase is included in what's already been presented.
That's included in that total appropriation request includes that pay raise. Yes.
Sure,
And-
that's 69,470. What is that percentage wise?
18.
Is 18.13%.
0.13.
Thank
Sharon, are
you.
Looking at the budget that I sent to you, or are you looking at the budget that was submitted? Or that the number that was used last year, because I have 165 on my page and you said 195. You had 383, 195 is what you said. That's where the difference is of $30.
That's what I have, the 383, 195.
What
That's
Roger has in front of him is 383, 165, and I don't, like I said, I don't have anything with me. I didn't know how long the meeting had gone, so I didn't feel like
Mhm.
tracking everything up with me again.
Now, that was what was input in the budget. I'm
Okay.
pulling that number
Right.
from what was
So it
that.
could be a data entry error on my part. Either way, it's $30, but the bottom line
Yeah.
is 18%, 9,000 and change.
All right, so Bill, this proposed number from the fire department is what is included in what's been captured and printed for us,
That's
correct?
correct. That's correct.
All right, so, yeah, I don't have any issue with what the fire department has asked for. But that still keeps us at a 0%, basically a 0% increase, correct?
Well,
Based on those figures that we've kind of looked at the 40,000.
Exactly.
I think all of these figures, we're talking very generalities right here. I think all of them, including what I'm hearing is there's a good chance that E.O. Smith may come down a bit. So
They usually do.
I think there's going to be refinements in a number of those line items.
Actually, E.O. Smith always comes down.
Well, as you know, last year, we had a 0 increase from them.
Mhm.
They're
And we're feeling it.
doing a fine job on that, but we're up at bat this year with the high of the 3 towns. But I'm hoping it comes. Normally they do. But we'll see
We call it being in the barrel.
Okay. We're not.
So at this point, and we're looking at what we're proposing for a town budget, general government budget, we're at basically a 0% increase.
In that's including the items, those extra items, the 5 items.
Yes. Yeah, based upon,
Which are not in the packet that.
no, I get that. And those extra items we already walked through, so they were it's basically they totaled to 38,243.
The only variance that I want to look at there.
Yeah.
Maybe with the youth service director's salary. I want to make sure we know what is going into her salary. I
Right.
believe that the figure she put in was based on comparable department heads that we have in other units.
That's what I mentioned.
And I want to make sure that we're still within that guideline. With the
Yes.
additions that she's getting, like the DCF grant and that sort of stuff.
Do we have money in our contingency fund or whatever that covers potential union negotiations?
We have typically, I think, was it 35, Sherry, we put in?
There is 35, and that was one of my questions that could raise depending on, that number didn't change at all. So depending on what happens with negotiations,
I asked her to
that
carry
number
over
may
what
need to
we
be
had from
raised.
asked her to carry over what we had from last year.
Okay, so typically we do plan for something.
We are.
So are we being remiss by not doing that?
Well, I think we're planning for some. We didn't spend all that we had for last year's, from my understanding, that we had put in that contingency.
Okay,
Is that
okay, that's
correct,
good.
Sherry?
I'm sorry.
The amount that we put in that contingency fund last year, have we made those end of the year salary adjustments? Because I had the impression we weren't spending all of that.
They have not been made yet. because I know from what the history that I got from Laura, is basically the salary amounts were straight across, and you did put this contingency to cover. So that will need to be addressed at the end of, budget. I mean, it certainly could be addressed now. You could do a transfer. I don't know if you typically, Board of Finance, if they do year-end transfers all at once, or do they do them at intervals during the,
They do them all at once. Well, they
Okay.
have, traditionally, they do them all at
Done.
once.
okay,
And they do that,
before the
yeah,
audit,
based upon,
usually.
before the audit.
That's usually
Particularly
what
that-
happens. Okay,
Particularly. the
And,
sal-
and part
salary.
of that is because certainly within the town departments, we can only do a transfer once for whatever department.
yeah, you can do transfers, back and forth as long as you don't go, bottom line.
Right.
But anything over the 20,000, then you gotta go town meeting. That's usually what happens. If that comes to be the case, bottom line. but-
Actually, I was thinking a little differently about
Yeah.
that. When we do our
I-
when we
I've
do our
also-
trans,
I've also asked Sherry, and I don't want to, we don't need to discuss that here, but to figure out certain percentages for us, knowing that we are going into.
It should. Yep.
So that number, can be it can be a moving target right now.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
that may.
we usually make a rough assumption. And
Okay.
just to make sure that we have something
there
to cover it.
To cover.
So Bill, what's your thinking on that?
Well, I would stay with the 35. Let Sherry, I've talked to her about a couple of alternatives and to try to
Okay.
equate how that is on a percentage basis. But I don't think it's appropriate. We discuss that right now.
No, that's fine. Okay.
So just.
Do you
in-
have any, Bill, based upon, because, certainly Roger and I haven't looked at this. As, we haven't had enough time to really go through it. It's a lot of stuff here. Are there any particular areas in the proposed budget that you feel are at risk?
At risk. Not sure what you mean by at risk.
At risk being that we've estimated too low.
No. No, as I'll tell you, and we've been saying this for years, the town budgets that are presented to us, I don't know any department that's ever pushed us or gone, with that theory, we'll ask for more because they're gonna cut us. These for the most part are bottom line, straightforward budgets that have very, very little wiggle room in them.
Right. They don't play that game.
They don't.
I've never seen them do that either.
No.
So they're very responsible.
I mean, that's why and we can incorporate a couple of the things that we've talked here after we massage these figures, but I'm comfortable with presenting them with the package that we have. And with the understanding that we're going to be fine tuning them, reviewing them individually. If we already had Paul here, but I was thinking on perhaps our next Tuesday scheduled 9 o'clock meeting, if we wanted to call the town clerk in, if we wanted to call the youth service director in, or any of those departments, we could have that as a working session with our individual departments if we needed more explanation. They'll be here on site, we'll be here, or a Zoom meeting. I just thought that would be a good opportune time to do that.
I actually don't, for me personally, I don't feel the need to call in the town clerk or any of the departments.
Okay.
What I would like is that what gets presented to the Board of Finance includes the 38,243 that we looked at in terms of your 5-part list, Bill,
Sherry,
our
Sherry,
review of that.
You got
I
those?
would love-
figures, Sherry?
I'd love to get that in there so that we're not coming back and going, hey, we need more.
Yeah.
it's
That's
gonna
fine.
be tough enough for the Board of Finance, looking at everything. The last thing in the world I'd want to do is go back and say, oops,
Mhm.
we gave you some numbers, but we really need, this much more, and for these.
What
So,
I can-
Terry, I agree with that. My only reluctancy to do that is I'm not sure until after CNR makes recommendations, moves a few things. We look at our balances with ARPA, the two figures that we're talking about, either coming from CNR or ARPA. Do we want to include those in Sherry's calculations and then deduct them afterwards?
No. I am pretty confident that one, the outside display signs can be paid for by ARPA. It's $10,000. It's not a ton of money. Okay, but it has an impact on what we're presenting as a town budget. So from what I understand about ARPA, and I've looked at it quite a bit over the last few years, they should be fine being in there. And since it's $10,000, it would qualify as capital improvement. The building repair is the only one I wasn't quite sure about. But I think if you're putting it all together as one thing, and you're talking $10,000, again, that's not a ton of money, that should be in capital improvements.
Roger, any thought on that?
No, that's, yeah.
Put them in?
So that's a thing of when the capital improvement committee, meets, and we need to, by the way, we need to formalize who's on the committee. We should do that tonight.
We've already put it into the capital expenditure for those repairs, right, Chris?
We did.
They're in the draft.
Yes, they're both on the capital list.
Oh, the display signs are as well?
Yes.
Okay. So we can, hopefully ARPA can handle at least that one. All right, so if that's the case, then, I would prefer that we were indicating that, the youth services, and I would say that we're confirming the figure there. Bear with me, the $20,000 for the, what will probably be a permanent position for DPW. With an explanation to them about what we're thinking on that. And then the 5,200 for the stipend, I think is appropriate at this time, based upon what we have as resources to put together the citizen.
But
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So that 38,243, I would like to see in what is presented to them.
can you do that, Sherry?
I can add those things. I have one question for you, and I don't know if you can give me history on this. This would be, my last page of the budget, which is it's called the capital, which is transferred to other funds. So that is the account that includes, like fire department, the dog fund, recreation fund, animal control.
Babcock Library.
Yes. So my question there, like recreation fund, the animal control fund and youth services, is that based on their budget minus their revenues? The amount that you fund over to them, or is it a percentage, do you know, or?
I
My-
think we transfer whatever's in that budget over to them.
I don't know, maybe Chris knows about this. I don't know how, I'm going to say, revenues get put into those funds.
Well, I'm thinking that, say they have a budget of 2,200.
No, I understood
and then-
what you said, but I didn't know if that's how we're doing it.
Okay, that is my only question here, like rec fund, there's 103,166. So I'm not sure how
When we
that number came about.
when we think about our town, our general government budget. So think about those departments. And if the, in terms of if they have money left over in their department, I don't know that it gets transferred into those funds. I think that is, the town general government is the general government budget.
Mhm.
I mean, the budget is for the general government. And so any monies that are not spent are, and you're
My
probably going to say about monies they
understanding-
bring in.
My
Yes, Chris.
understanding has always been that the money left over in the animal control budget goes into the dog fund, which is a
Okay.
statutory fund.
Yep.
So it becomes the statutory funds are probably the ones where we do that.
But
And I
have
don't
you
know if
checked
we-
with Laura, Sherry?
There are
I
specific
did.
things, there
Yes,
are
Chris?
specific things that the money in the dog fund can be used for.
Mhm.
It can be used for pound repairs, it can be used for
Yes.
salaries. I can't remember the rest of them. But
So I think that's something we need to understand, but typically, my understanding has been in general, if there's money left over at the end of the year from the general government budget, it goes back into the undesignated fund.
That would be correct, but this line here is you budget money in your general government budget to help fund these other funds for the youth services, for animal control, Babcock Library. Like the Babcock Library, you fund it 100%. They gave a budget for 185,000, you budget 185,000, so that gets transferred to that fund, 185,000. So I am just curious, because the recreation fund, now that they are including, if I'm correct, you're gonna go, because her budget included this new program for the after school. So you
Okay,
gotta
so-
decide- you guys had to decide if you're going to.
Oh, that shouldn't be in there.
Yeah,
Bill?
Sherry, I thought we talked about that we wanted a separate department with that.
That is, but right now, that, I mean, we're so on the, don't know if you're going with this program or
Right.
not, where we gotta have a budget somewhere for this. Right now, it is on the recreation page, so that needs to be, is that going to be pulled into the town budget, where you're gonna set up a new page to fund this?
I anticipated that going into the town government budget with separate line item. Now, keep in mind, although we're talking about some seed money that I think can be an ARPA appropriation, that is going to be designed where it's neutral with cost to the town. Now, I know that it came up the last time that it could be a revenue source, but I'm looking at it as neutral at this point.
So again, to Sherry's point, maybe. We haven't approved that. We haven't approved that program,
Correct.
but we're putting money into the budget for it.
I wouldn't
And
put it-
I would
wouldn't-
actually prefer that once we have our ducks in a row, there be a town meeting about approving that program.
Yeah, I think that'll pass, but I think what I'd like to see in there is, even if it's just to carry line items, that we put expenditure and revenues in there as a line item, even if we just put $10 in each of those lines, until we do establish whether or not we're going ahead with that or not.
That I would agree to. The $10 is kind of going, we're looking at this.
We're
gonna make
projecting that
sure
it's gonna happen without committing.
Right, and it, and then in submitting the budget, it will at least have the line item there. It's not like you're going in and putting one in after the fact. Okay.
I'd put a revenue and a expenditure line item in there, Sherry.
And I would do the $10 for each.
And I'll explain that to the Board of Finance.
So where do you want to see that line? Do you want to see it under your Board of Selectmen, or you want a whole separate department?
My personal opinion, it might be an auditors, and I was gonna say with that other question you had, maybe you want to run it by Sean with the auditors about how that should be, if there's monies left over in the Babcock or whatever, how we deal with that.
It stays in their fund is what's
Right.
happening.
Okay, because the cemetery fund, I knew keeps regenerating itself.
That's a proprietary, that's different.
Okay,
That's a little different, but basically what happens is in budgeting purposes for the town, you have that line for Babcock, and it's a transfer from the general fund budget to Babcock library budget, and they operate on that 185,000. And if they don't use it all, it stays in there in that fund. It doesn't come back. Just like the fire department, that money gets.
I guess that's what I'm not clear on. Because I thought, like every other department, if they didn't spend it all, whatever was left in that fund then would regenerate into the general fund. That's
Mm-mm,
not the case.
mm-mm,
You know what, and this is interesting because
mm-mm,
funds are different.
mhm.
And so when we've talked about, pretty much what money is going into the undesignated fund after the fact, after the audit, so to speak, we need to make sure that we're communicating that properly, communicating where the monies are going. That's kind of a new thing for me. This one, I didn't understand the intricacies. So, yeah, whatever we can find out would be good. In the meantime,
Why don't
I
you
do
run it
know
by
that the rec,
Sean?
I do know that the rec department or the recreation fund used to have a lot of money in there. And what was happening is the rec department was over expending, and they kept drawing from that fund until it was basically not much money. So that's where they were, drawing from, period.
I think we all need to be aware of the protocol on that, and
Yeah.
I think the auditor is the best one to address that.
Okay. So in the meantime, in terms of what gets presented on Thursday, and I will be there too. I'd like to see that 38,243 in there, with some explanations for the Board of Finance. And do we need to make a motion? I don't know what else we need to discuss about the budget. I don't know if Roger has anything else or you have anything else, Bill?
No. I at the point where we are with as much information as we have or don't have, and I think we've got the bulk of it. I'm comfortable with filling in the Board of Finance on where we are and what we're going to present to. Why don't, Catherine, if you want to make a motion, just so we have it on record of what that 38,000 represents. Why don't we take a vote on it?
Well, actually, I thought that the motion would be what we are recommending as amount, a total amount to them,
That's
not the 38,243, but whatever that's added to the amount. So I'm going to count on Sherry to tell me what that would be. So we get the numbers right. And I don't have to go leafing through all these papers.
Okay.
And also if there's a, I don't know if there's a way to do a quick calculation on what the percent of increase or decrease is that goes with that. So when you have the new number.
That'll take a few. Go.
And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
Okay, so. The new person that we're talking around 20 grand for the transfer
Yes.
station.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's gonna be the the 20 grand plus whatever we save in that temporary position right now.
No, that's the net, a net effect, if I recall, Bill. Well,
Well,
this
that's-
is what I have,
that's
this
we
is what I have for,
anticipate.
what I have for numbers. Is we got the 13,043. for
That's
youth
already
service.
included. That you're talking, that's youth services,
It's-
correct?
Yes, it's already included in what we got presented to us.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
I
The
didn't
six-
know that.
the
That
six-
makes our
believe it
number
is.
even less.
65 is in there, right? That's, or whatever that figure is.
65 is rounded up, that's fine. So in other words, what we're really talking about, based upon what we received, previously in our draft, we're only talking about adding
Hold on.
$25,200 to the general government budget. That is the $20,000 that is the offset. I'm sorry, 20,000 of it was already going to be offset someplace else.
Catherine, sorry, open my
Yeah.
mouth, insert foot. No, that number is not included because I'll have to increase that amount on
Okay.
the capital portion. The youth services program, that 13,000.
Okay, so the 13,000.
Yeah.
43, whatever it is here.
Yeah.
The 64,854 is going to be the number that you're going to have in there.
Mhm.
Okay. So I look at that and go, okay, there's the 13,043, that's the difference.
So 13,43.
Then, and Bill, you can correct me if I got this wrong, then 20,000, which is the additional monies that we're going to need when we go to a handy person, utility person,
That's-
person.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's an additional 20,000.
Right.
So you add
Okay.
that to the 13,043, and then the 5,200 stipend.
Yep.
And that comes out to 38,243.
Yep.
So at a high level, that's just adding that 38,243 to whatever was proposed in the draft here.
Yep, 38. Okay, so we are looking at, let's do quick. Okay. So Bill, you want the 5,200 in the Board of Selectmen under the printing and binding with the citizens notice?
Correct,
Or do
That's
you want a
right.
separate line?
correct.
No, yeah, just include it.
Just include it? Okay. So that's gonna be 30.
So we're talking about less than $1,000 overall
Right.
increase with the addition that we have of what we were so we're basically a zero budget.
Exactly.
615. 215. Transfer station. So we're increasing wages, transfer station by 20. Come on. So that's gonna be 94. 10. Oops. 10. Oh, the only other thing I don't have, Chris, were you able to get me printing and binding and postage for
Not
transfer
yet.
station?
Not yet. I should have it tomorrow.
So should we put a dollar amount? Because that's not in here yet.
There's nothing in there? in the
No.
Transfer station?
Mm-mm.
I'd put in for 5. We can always bring it down, hopefully.
$5,000.
We have to do postage, printing the stickers, printing the letter, printing the envelopes, printing the punch cards,
That can also be explained to them, Bill.
and the
Progress.
company that stuffs everything and mails it.
So that'll cover postage too, Chris?
Yes,
Okay,
It'll
so
be-
5
it'll
grand
be
there.
pre-printed postage on
Is
the
that
envelope.
something that could be paid out of the NIPS fund? If we so chose,
Well, how much money do you have in the NIPS fund?
10,
Only
It
10.
depends-
You got a
It
building you
depends
want to
on How
get.
much you're gonna spend for a shed?
yeah. I'm still trying to get a bargain on that somewhere, but
Is there a chance? I don't know. Is there a chance that, yeah, there probably is. If we look at our ARPA funds again on that shed,
we could, if I remember right, the last ARPA balance we had was about 179,000. Is that correct, Chris?
I don't know. I haven't finished that.
yeah, I thought it was, for some reason, I thought it was closer to 160,000, but that's still
Yeah,
a good mollusk. So that shed, that could be done with ARPA funds.
and do this with the NIP money.
Yeah,
That way we won't have an impact on the mill rate.
right.
There was, I had one little thing for area agencies that you guys should have in your packets. It was from Day Kimball Home Care. They had requested $500. That's not in here. You've not funded that in the past, so I don't know.
Now, we put
No.
United in there, right?
United Services is in here. Yes,
That's
that
new.
is new for you also. But
Okay.
I just
Not Day
wanted to
Kimball.
throw it out there when you see it in your packet.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with Dave Kimball right now.
Okay,
No, I
that's
wouldn't either.
fine. Okay. Oh, where were we gonna throw that recreation piece? Where do you want to show that? You want me to just put it as a line in your Board of Selectmen right now and then we can always break it out. That's easy to do.
Refresh my memory. What aspect of the recreation piece?
For the
Oh, that
after
program?
school, yes,
Yeah, after school.
That would be
program.
under selectmen's budget, wouldn't it?
that's where I can throw it.
I was hoping to have a separate line item, but we can do that under, we can always change it later.
We certainly can. You can set up
Put it
another
$10.
department.
Yeah,
I'd rather, keep it clear that that program would be something that would be under the selectmen.
Okay, then I'm gonna throw that there for the moment, just so it's in here. Insert. Undo.
Now, when all is said and done, your revenues are going to need to match your
Oh,
expenditures.
absolutely,
Yeah, okay.
absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see what that's gonna be proposed.
Yep.
That's gonna be after school.
Ashford after school program,
And we're at $10, correct?
Yes.
the
Okay.
AAP. No, wait. The AS, never mind.
Two, 5, 175. Okay. And okay. That, okay, 380, 360, good. Section, EPA, wetlands conservation, economic development. Okay, in here. Oops. So with those changes in, you got a 0.11%.
Increase,
Yeah, $4,088.
okay. I'd still call that a zero.
Oh, me too. It doesn't round up to anything more than a zero.
0.11.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I will certainly go through and tweak some more, I will send these new pages out to you guys so you can add it to your pile of stuff.
Oh, thanks.
I'm probably gonna go through and tweak, I'm gonna talk to, Bill again here, as far as where we want to, because what'll happen, the employee benefit line is going to change based on whatever happens with,
Right.
with your dollars.
Yep.
I went a little higher with that, just with that notion, but that certainly can change one way or the other, depending on negotiations.
If I could ask Bill, have there been any discussions with the insurance group?
We're still at 20%.
20?
Oh, insurance, yes, that's correct, yeah.
The the partnership is averaging, their latest figure came out at a 7.1% increase. But I'm being told, I'll forward you, I got a comparison, putting the partnership side by side with the partnership
United.
program and United. I'll forward that to you and Roger. I think you've already seen it, Sherry.
No, I have not, because I
Okay.
know that was something that was being worked on.
I'll forward that to you.
Okay,
Right now, we're still looking at a 20%. And I'm being told that that's driven basically by a very high loss ratio, claims ratio at the school. I don't have particulars of that right now, but that's what I'm being advised.
So when all is said and done, Sherry,
mm-hmm.
the total general government budget number is what?
Total government budget right now is 3,845,804.
804. And the percentage again is the 0.11.
Yes, 0.11, yes.
Sherry, would you repeat that one more? 3,845,000.
804.
So what we can do is we could have a motion tonight for the general government budget. But we can't really have a motion for the capital improvement budget. What
Correct.
can happen is that, Bill, if you do end up speaking to that, is to say that that's still being worked on.
Yep.
Okay, so if it's okay with you, I'd like to make the motion. And Roger, do you have anything else you wanted to add before I do?
Nope.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the general budget request for $3,845,804 for fiscal year 2023-24 for presentation to the Board of Selectmen.
Finance.
The Board of, I always do that. I always get us backwards. I spent 18 years on the other board, so I get confused.
I'll second that.
Is that,
there any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye?
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Sherry, you're a godsend.
Yeah, you're really nice to work with.
Well, thank you. I
That
mean,
too. All right, next item on the agenda is the Capital Projects Committee.
Yeah, could you list off the names again of the proposed ones?
Fire department is Chief Varga. Ashford School is Cindy Ford. Board of Finance is Judy Austin. Building Committee is Jim Rupert. Public Works is Joe Kalinowski. First Selectman. And I asked Chuck Funk as a citizen representative who's agreed to do it.
Good. Is that all of them?
That's it.
I'd like to make a motion to approve these folks for the Capital Improvement Committee for fiscal year 2023-24.
Seconded.
Any more discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now, one of the things that we need to make sure our Capital Improvement Committee knows is, you know, they shouldn't just be meeting just prior to us doing the budget. They should, as time goes on and some other things come up, they should at least have some kind of meeting every once in a while to look at that and make their recommendations to us. So, and I appreciate their service on this committee, and it looks like we have a really good group for it.
I think so. All right, item C. Board and commission appointments. I have none at this time that are recommended. Item D, agenda items, hold off a minute. I'd like a motion to add tax refunds.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye.
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 Chris, what have we got?
Cali Financial in the amount of $323.72. Citing statute 12-129. And Wanda Fabian in the amount of $10, also citing 12-129.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Roger moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item D, agenda items for upcoming Board of Selectmen meetings. The only
My
thing I
brain-
would suggest would be for our Tuesday meeting. I know seemed to be consensus that nobody thought we ought to bring in any departments, but I think we ought to have at least a review of the initial capital review committee. And
Yes.
I'd like to bring Joe Kalinowski in to talk to us about Public Works.
Okay.
Any other items to be added to the agenda?
No, I think we have a full enough plate right now.
Hearing none. I've got 9:30.
My motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
So moved. Thank
Aye.
you, folks.
Take care.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yes, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
Sherry. Thank you, Chris.
Yep. So
Thanks
price
for
you
everybody
guys.
attending.
All
Thanks,
right.
John or Mike, or whoever's out there. Have a good evening.